Welcome and thank you for tuning in. Today we have the pleasure of talking design with Sharon Crowson of the Design Archives, an international brand specialising in luxury interior furnishing fabrics. With over 30 years experience and a sharp eye for design and style, Sharon's beautiful printed textile collections adorn luxury interiors all over the world. And alongside her own brand, the Design Archive, Sharon is also the custodian of the Crowson Archive. So today we're going to talk about the Crowson Archive, we'll talk about the Crowson family's love of printed textiles, and we're going to discuss how Sharon is breathing new life into the patterns and prints from her father, Derek Crowson's extensive archive. Sharon, welcome and thank you for joining us today. Can you give us an introduction to your business, the Design Archives?
Briefly, it's a resurrection of the old brand, the Design Archives, that my father acquired way back when, sometime in the 90s, along with a few other brand names, and it seemed to fit what I wanted to do well, resurrecting archival designs that my father had collated over his 50-year span in business, and I didn't want to call myself Crowson again. That's been seen, done, ticked off the list, and yes, and it sat very well. So that's why I use the name the Design Archives. The concept started, I think, about 2016, a good few years after my dad withdrew from the business and retired. I didn't really know what I wanted to do, but I think a lot of people can understand. Once it's in the blood, it's in the blood. And from 16, really, my father said, "You're coming to work for me," and for about 30 years on and off, I pretty much went through the business in every department you could think of. So my didn't realise it at the time, but the retained knowledge from the manufacturing side of it, I don't know, as on the road selling, making hangers, receptionist, working in the offices, to the end doing the colouring for the collections in the last few years, everything. So master of all trades in the developing side of the business and the commercial. So I didn't realise how much knowledge I'd attained until I started, but I just used the template that I'd inherited, really, as far as structure of the business. And I thought I'd just grow slow. However, I did think I was just going to pick a few lovely designs out, develop them, bring them to market, but it went sort of out in. I used all the contacts I had, certainly globally, before developing the UK market. So the wrong way around, people would say, probably is, but yeah, it's getting there. Yeah.
That's great to hear, isn't it? It's incredible legacy, actually, isn't it? And it's also a tribute to how much knowledge is required, actually, in our industry. And to have a vertical knowledge that you have is exceptional and quite rare, actually, in this day and age, definitely. Sharon, how has the furnishing industry changed in the last few years? And how has your business adapted?
Well, what am I, 4 years in? Are you talking about how it's changed from 10, 20 years ago? Well, it's vast. Mm-hmm. It was all bulk. My father was bulk, sort of mid market, mid higher end, I guess. Phenomenal, really. I mean, he was printing millions of meters a year, millions. We even had our own print works up in Manchester, Calprina. One design alone was printing 10 million meters a year at its height. That is not what I do. I'm appealing to the high end designers nowadays. It's a completely different business,
So having that textile history and adapting your business to all of the changes that have happened, you've also been very, very busy digitising the Design Archives, haven't you? Your father's Design Archives. What treasures did you find in there?
Oh my goodness! I mean, in addition to trying to grow the Design Archives brand, ongoing developing of this brand, I really wanted to capitalise and develop the archive, which is the main resource of the business. Would it be a wasted resource not to? And it's taken now, I mean, we're into 2 years. I went to, I got some advice, which I always like to get plenty of advice with everything. Went to Warner's archivists, and they kindly advised me and put me in touch with two very good textile archivists. And for the last 2 years, or certainly first 18 months, they were on site. We keep the archive in my father's squash court down in Sussex, which is the perfect temperature-wise an area to keep it in. Bringing it was in some order, but it's no good all sitting in drawers under headings. How do you find anything? And in this day and age, the digital day and age, I wanted it to be visible online for people to access. So it's been painstakingly organised by design, era, genre, style, you name it. Metadata, all the metadata. I'm not very technical, but it's all been thoroughly done and digitised that way. And we've now, I think we've got about 8,000 or 9,000 up there now on the Crowson archive website that we've created. It's a search engine where you can type in what, as I said, genre, style you need, and up they pop. And it's still an ongoing process. There's still a lot to do. Some of the more historic textile fabrics, drawings, paintings, going back, a few hundred years, some of them. It's just beautiful. I mean, I can immerse myself down there for hours and get lost in it, because it's so inspiring. It's my father, although he had a very commercial eye, he also has got great taste. He's aesthetically, whether it's in his furnishings, his appearance, or whatever. And I've inherited that too. So I think he also collected, whilst he was looking for the commercial elements, he did buy a lot of beautiful pieces that perhaps he knew that he wouldn't develop just because they're so beautiful. So yeah, it's an inspiring area and space to be in.
It's fantastic, isn't it? How do you capture the fine details of the documents and the painted artworks collected by your dad?
Yes, they're scanned, photographed. I'm not queen of technicalities, Debbie, but I certainly know that they're all high quality imagery has been used for this. Yeah.
That's amazing. So, Sharon, how do you utilise both digital and screen technologies now then with using that archive, and what do you think the benefits are for you personally as a business?
Well, the digital technology, I mean, it makes the whole process so much quicker. I can access files, and I have people doing the separating for me, and I can get instant results really. Whereas before, in the old days, whilst I love traditional development. I do love the old ways, but it does. You're quite right. It takes time is money sometimes, and the digital age, it's made everything so much faster and quicker to get certainly visual, clearer images of where you're moving forward and how the designs are developing. I'm pretty good at picking designs out that will convert easily, well balanced designs, and I've got a good idea of trends. I don't really like that word, but I just go for what I choose what I like. I've got quite a contemporary eye too, whether it's again in all aspects of my life. So I try and keep it quite individual, the designs I choose. I don't always get it right. I get halfway and a bit of time spent on things and think, this isn't translating how I want it to do, whatever cloth I try it on. But that's very rare. I do enjoy that creative side of it and that developing side of it. Absolutely, definitely.
Yeah, and I guess that's the freedom that digital gives the creative as well, isn't it? You get to a position where you have test printed and sampled a design in hours or days if you're externally printing it, where you haven't had to cut screens, etc., etc. So you, as a creative, you can be much, much more experimental.
Oh, absolutely, absolutely, it is. I can. No, you're quite right. It speeds the whole process up, and that's the major difference between now and then.
How has it opened up new business opportunities for you personally within the design archives? I mean, obviously, the Crowson archive itself is a digital reference point for the industry, must bring the industry an incredible insight and inlet into fantastic quality design, which to be frank, beforehand, both of us will have done this. You had to go to Lille or Lyon and scour through the museums and through all the archives and go through document
Yes.
after document after document to find these things. So it's an incredible resource. How do you think that's going to be used? How are some of your customers that are taking things from the Crowson archive now? How are they using those patterns in the industry?
Well, it's a work in progress developing the archive. It doesn't happen overnight. It's still a work in progress, with the licensing structure, the whole thing. It's still very, very much in early days, Debbie. We were talking the other day about copyright, that kind of thing. You have to put a feint, and you were talking about the clarity of the imagery. Well, of course, when you're first seeing it, you have to have some kind of watermark on it to protect the design. It's not until the design is chosen that we can access the finer detail. How do I see it going for? Well, I mean, it's world's my oyster there, really. I mean, I've done it for my own benefit, as well as bring it to the wider public. My idea just creating the design archives was to, number one, just get some of those beautiful designs out the drawer and get them on some fabric, and in some cases reintroduce them, because somebody sat there and painted and created these pieces of art just to go in a drawer for infinity. It's sacrilege, really, of course, but you can't develop them all. You need the turnover first to start to produce any of them. So it's slow going that way. And I see digitising the archive. Well, it's a means to an end too. And I think it's the archive really is the value behind the company. It's the resource, and without that, without the resource, I feel, well, with this, I feel very fortunate. I wouldn't have done it. I wouldn't have ventured out on my own without that resource, because it's unique and it's only me that's got it. It's a work in progress. People, if they want to lease one of the designs from me, it can be used, well, for anything. Production for furniture, for anything, clothing. I'd love to. I don't know if you can see behind me. One of the designs is made into a beautiful velvet cape. And
beautiful.
some designers I've seen use some of my fabrics making suits. Bright yellow tree of life. They're amazing.
Yeah, it's interesting, isn't it? Because many years ago when I trained, and probably when you did too, interiors was one sector and fashion was another, and the designers very rarely cross between the two. But now, pattern and print crosses all landscapes, doesn't it? It's totally generic across everything.
They do. I've had a lot of interest in it. Yeah. In fashion as well, because that would be very lucrative too. It's all very exciting. Just get it. As I say, it's 3 or 4 years in, Debbie, and the opportunities are certainly there. And I think the more I push forward using the digital technology that we have nowadays, with the archive, and with this brand, there's many. I can see the horizons broadening. Absolutely.
That's great. So that's a great segue to the next question, actually, because you've recently launched a wallpaper collection. Can you tell us a little bit more about that?
Well, early on, it's from the second year. I've always loved fabric on walls. Since I was a child. I used to marvel over in France with my parents. They put fabric on the walls of friends' houses and everything. And always loved it, and I've always thought it was so elegant, and so stunning and so effective. So we do supply a bespoke paper backed fabric service for most of our qualities and most of the designs. which is proving reasonably popular. But we've had a lot of requests for when you're going to do your wallpaper collection. So that's what I'm doing now. It will be ready to launch in by September, all being well. And it's really a collection of some of my favourite designs to date out of the 6 collections we've got. I think it's half a dozen prints and a plain. That I'm printing on different qualities, some lovely quality papers. So fingers crossed they'll be successful. I certainly love them, and we've had good feedback so far.
That's great. I can't wait to see those. Really look forward to seeing those. And I 100% agree with you. There's nothing like
they're lovely
textiles on the wall. It just takes luxury to the next level, doesn't it? It's absolutely beautiful. You know, wallpapers have to be tactile.
They do, because they're all, you know, nowadays it's a feature wall. It's not, you know, you don't put them, well, you could put them on every wall, but it's usually, you know, a feature in a room, you know, and you other than then looking stunning, it draws, you want to feel it, you know. So it needs to look and be and feel good too.
Got one last question, but just before we go there, really, I really do encourage everybody to explore your archive and have a really great deep dive in there. It's such a joy to see such incredible historic documents, and you know, I have seen some of those works in my own career over the time. So I would definitely recommend everybody to have a look at those. The last question, the final question, Sharon, for today. What advice would you give a creative or young designer brand that's just starting out in the business?
Well, I wouldn't envy them, but I say youth has got a lot of enthusiasm behind it, which is essential. You've got to love what you do. I would recommend that you didn't try and be too broad. And concern yourself with what the trends are. Yes, you do. The feel of the year you're living in, or the times you're living in. However, I would try and stay channeled to what you do best, because there is so much competition out there. Everybody try and do a bit of every style that's out there. You just get. I would advise you just get lost. So stick to what you enjoy, stick to what you love, stick to what your styles are, and that's one thing. It's the commercial side you need to get a lot of help with. You know, how are you going to bring your product to market? How are you going to manufacture it? How are you going to develop it? Who is your end customer? You have to have the whole plan there. Don't be shy of asking advice. I never am. You know, there's always more to learn. Always more to learn. And it's a very friendly industry out there. You know, we do like all sharing with each other, which I think is lovely. But I would definitely recommend you get all the information, all the help and advice. You know, financial, commercial advice. Definitely know where your end market is and where you see your product going. It might change, but you do need a plan. And the manufacturing, all your costs, you have to see it all in front of you, because this is a very expensive business to get into before it actually gets to market, you know.
That's true. I think so many people underestimate that, don't they? It's really great advice, Sharon. Fantastic. Sharon, thank you so much for joining us today. It's been an absolute pleasure to talk with you. I'll make sure that all of your contact details are in the show notes just below in the listings. And I'd also like to add a personal thank you to all of our viewers for joining us today. If you've enjoyed our conversation, we'd love to hear from you. If you have any questions for either myself or for Sharon, then please do use the comments box below. Please also, if you can, subscribe to our channels and visit our website, where again you'll find more details and more information on how to connect and how to find more extensive insights into this incredible industry that we all share a passion for, which is textiles. Sharon, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you. I hope it made some sense. Thanks very much.
It's been an absolute pleasure. Thank you.